like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
All right, so, we like to get into the nitty-gritty, and today we are going deep on a story about Chris Brown.
Yeah, this is a wild one.
It's a doozy. It's a big lawsuit, $500 million. So, yeah, we're going to take a deep dive into this article from The Hollywood Reporter.
Yeah.
It's all about Brown's defamation suit against Warner Bros. Discovery.
Warner Bros. Discovery. So this is a big one.
This is a big one. Buckle up, guys.
Yeah, I think what's fascinating about this is, it's not just a celebrity legal battle, right?
Yeah.
This actually gets into some really interesting questions about defamation law.
Uh-huh.
It gets into questions of, what responsibility do documentary filmmakers have? And then, how do public figures deal with accusations in this age of, streaming and documentaries and all that stuff?
Exactly. And this is a case where it's kind of like a perfect storm of all of those things.
Yeah.
So the whole thing comes from this documentary, Chris Brown, A History of Violence. And I mean, as you can tell from the title, it doesn't shy away from some of the, darker moments in his past.
Right.
And some very serious accusations.
Yeah. And the article highlights one accusation in particular from a Jane Doe who accused Brown of rape back in 2022.
Oh, wow.
And she actually filed a lawsuit.
Okay.
But it was later dismissed without prejudice, which is a legal term.
Yeah. What does that mean, without prejudice?
Yeah.
I feel like people throw that around.
Yeah.
They don't really know what it means.
Yeah. And it sounds ominous.
It does.
But all it really means is that the case can be refiled later.
Okay.
So it doesn't actually mean that the court decided whether the accusations were true or false.
Okay.
It just means that the legal process was stopped for whatever reason. And now Brown is claiming that the documentary producers knew about this dismissal and knew that Jane Doe's accusations were false, but they included them in the film anyway.
Wow, that's a pretty bold statement. And in fact, the article even quotes Brown as saying, "This documentary was a blatant attempt to assassinate my character and slander my name."
Yeah, he's not holding back.
No, he's not. And he's also alleging that the producers ignored evidence that would have disproved the accusations.
Right.
Like text messages uncovered by law enforcement, and that the woman has a history of violence and erratic behavior.
Right. And that's where this idea of actual malice comes in.
Yeah. What is actual malice?
So actual malice is the legal standard that Brown is using in his lawsuit. And it's a very high bar to clear.
Okay.
It's not enough to say that, they said mean things about him or they said untrue things about him.
Right.
To prove actual malice, Brown has to show that the producers knew the information was false when they included it.
Right.
Or that they acted with reckless disregard for the truth.
So they just didn't care.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not just what they presented. It's about how they went about gathering and verifying the information.
So that they do their due diligence.
Exactly.
Interesting. And that's where I imagine it gets really hard to prove in court.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. How do you prove what somebody knew or didn't know?
Right.
What steps they took to verify information? It's a legal minefield.
Totally. And I imagine that's a minefield for documentary filmmakers, too.
Absolutely.
Because if the bar for actual malice is set too high, doesn't that make it almost impossible to make documentaries about controversial figures?
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with these really sensitive topics like sexual assault.
Right.
Where there often are conflicting accounts and evidence.
It really raises the question, can a documentary about a controversial figure ever be truly objective?
Right.
Especially when you're dealing with these very sensitive topics, like you said.
Right, by the line between.
Right. Where does responsible storytelling end?
Right.
And potential defamation begin?
Yeah. That's heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, this is a $500 million lawsuit.
Right.
Brown's claiming damages to his reputation and to his career. But I thought it was really interesting. He said that if he wins, he'll donate some of that money to organizations that support survivors of sexual abuse.
That's interesting.
What do you think about that? Is it, a genuine gesture? Is it a strategic PR move?
Yeah. It's hard to say, right?
Or is it something else entirely?
Some might see it as an attempt to soften the blow.
Sure.
Deflect criticism. Others might see it as, true remorse.
Yeah.
The article doesn't really, get into how the public reacted to that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something to think about.
Yeah, it adds like another whole layer of complexity to this situation.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's trying to control the narrative.
Right.
And that makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
Because he made his own documentary back in 2017 called Welcome to My Life.
Right.
And in that documentary, he addressed the assault of Rihanna. And he even talked about how his image went from America's sweetheart to public enemy #1.
Yeah.
Like almost overnight.
Yeah, it's clear that he understands the power of media
Right.
and how it can really shape public perception.
Right.
And this lawsuit might be his way of pushing back against a narrative that he sees as unfair or inaccurate.
So where do the documentary producers stand in all this?
Well, they've come out swinging.
Okay.
Investigation Discovery, which is owned by Warner Bros. Discovery. They gave a statement to the Hollywood Reporter defending the documentary, and they said that they plan to fight this lawsuit.
So they're standing by their work.
Yeah, they're basically saying they stand by their work and their journalistic practices.
Okay.
So it's going to be interesting to see how their defense strategy unfolds.
All right. So to recap, we have Chris Brown claiming defamation based on actual malice.
Right.
Which, as we discussed, is a legal standard that is not easy to prove.
Yeah.
We have a documentary that dives into some sensitive and controversial territory, which is raising all these questions about, journalistic responsibility and ethics and storytelling. And, of course, we have a potential $500 million verdict just looming over everything.
A lot on the line.
A lot at stake here.
Yeah, and I think what I find most thought-provoking about this whole case is that it really highlights the challenges that we have today and balancing free speech with the protection of reputation in this digital age.
Yeah.
I mean, how do we ensure that documentaries can tackle these difficult topics without being stifled by fear of litigation? But at the same time, how do we ensure that individuals are protected from false or misleading information?
It's a really tough question.
It's a real tightrope walk.
It is, and that is something for you, our listeners, to ponder as well.
Yes.
How do you think documentaries should navigate these tricky waters?
Yeah.
Where do we draw the line between telling a compelling story and potentially harming someone's reputation?
Right.
This case opens up like a Pandora's box of questions.
Yeah.
About truth and accountability and the power of media in our lives.
Absolutely. Food for thought.
Food for thought.
Definitely.
For sure. All right. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
See you next time.
See ya. Bye.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a puppy dog. Show them all what